my name is Jen O'Sullivan from Southern California. You may know me from the Human Body and Essential Oils. I'm so excited that Jennifer asked me here today, and a big shout out to North Carolina. You guys are gonna rock this thing. I'm so happy that you guys are here. Just know that Young Living is amazing, and the journey that it has provided for me has been just like mind-blowing. But wanted to kind of like get on here and help you guys on your own journey, right? Because that's kind of key. I love that about Young Living, is that so many of us are just excited to help give back to people, help people understand maybe concepts that are a little bit weird, right? And so Jennifer's asked me to talk about emotional support and essential oils. It's kind of like maybe the 2.0 version of essential oil use, right? You take that iToby scan and you get a scan and you think, why does it understand what I'm going through emotionally? Like, that's weird. And that always creeps me out. Like when nobody else knows and then it scans for me and it says I need an oil and I look up what that oil is for and I go, whoa, right? Like, that's crazy. So those scans and bioimpedance, this kind of feedback, it's kind of reading things that are a little bit off. And even if you didn't have that, right, you sort of already know what's going on. So the kind of whoa factor is the whoa factor because it read what you had problems. So if you don't know what an iToby scanner is, you can look it up. It's just a handheld device that's really, really powerful to help you track your stuff, everything that's going on in your body. But when you know, like, you've got something going on that's emotional, right? Like, I mean, any number of things, that's the issue, is that you can start looking up essential oils and different ones and what they're for, right? So like, why can you use release? And why do so many people use release and they don't like it? Okay, they don't like it because it releases things they're not ready for. Most people will just start crying within 15 seconds and it's frustrating for them. My husband's not a crier. Straight up, I've seen him cry like 6 times in 25 years. Like 25 years, no joke. And recently, I put the oil of release on the back of his neck to help him get through something that he was going through. And he got so mad at me. Like, he literally started like hitting me in the car. Like, oh, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Because he's like streaming tears. And I mean, he wasn't hitting me hard. I knew what was going on. I'm like, sorry, you know, but it's powerful. And it's kind of like, why? And as a Christian, like, I fought this for a long time. I fought frequency for a long time. I'm like, that's so bogus, you know? Like, okay, fine, whatever. I can put the oils on topically. I can feel them. I can feel things happen. I'm good with that. But the whole kind of like forgiveness, like in a bottle, come on, that God does that, right? Okay, so let's kind of dive in a little bit deeper here, because part of the issue with our bodies and how God made us is that I am an extraordinarily emotional being, right? You don't see deer on the side of the road crying. They might whimper because they're in pain, but they're not sad, right? So being made in God's image means that I have the beautiful ability to have these emotional responses to things. Now, emotions are interesting because they're wired hardware and software. It's like our brains, and then attached to kind of this emotional crying or laughter or anger, and you know, there's all sorts of things that kind of happen. But when you use an essential oil, I look at it like back in the days when there was no electricity, and when electricity was discovered and they now harnessed electricity, the homes that had it first, who had the hardest time with it? It was like the religious people. They all said it was from the devil. Straight up, electricity is straight up satanic. Okay, that's what they said. And it's because it's unknown. Now, we can't put God in a box. We can't say that we know everything that's going on in this world, right? And I look at that from a lot of different things, like feng shui, right? There's some really weird things to me about feng shui. However, I can't put God in a box and say, no, that's based on Eastern religion. You know, who cares, right? Think about it from the perspective of energy and electricity. And we can't see electricity, but we can see the effects of electricity. I can stick a fork in the outlet and I can feel that electricity, So when you use an essential oil and you don't understand it, but you can feel its effects, you got to trust that there's something beyond your understanding there. I don't understand how electricity works. I don't even try to bother, but I know it works and I benefit from its benefits, right? I use its benefits every single day. So it's kind of the same with essential oils to say, God has created so many things that we don't understand. And the moment I am dead from this body and alive with him, I will know things that will be like, whoa, that's how it works. Like, cool, And that's important. I don't even know if I'll care at that point because I'll be too busy like loving on Jesus. But the thing that I want to help you guys understand is you don't have to know how everything works. You don't have to know everything. You just have to trust that it works. There's no reason for hundreds of thousands of people to say lavender is helpful at calming if it's not, right? There's no reason for that. But at the end of the day, some of you get wired from using lavender. And it's like, well, what is that all about? The thing when you start understanding that we use oils in different ways and our bodies are all very different, that sometimes those people who got wired, it's because it's the very first oil they used. Lavender typically, 90% of the time when I've asked somebody, when you got wired from using lavender, was it the first time you ever used oils? And usually it's a yes, because it's the only oil that they know. And so you get your kit and you're like, I don't know where to start, so I'm going to use lavender. They told me to put lavender on my feet before I go to bed. Well, oils are highly antioxidant. So what happens the first time you use oils is it's going to work. It's getting rid of the free radicals in your body and it's flushing you out. That will excite you. That will wire you. So it's important to maybe go back and revisit certain oils that maybe didn't work for you in the beginning as you thought they should and use them now. But the thing with emotions that is the biggest issue is our limbic system, this olfactory system that's right behind, it's part of our brain, it's right behind, it's right above like our nose. So here, right back inside. And that is right when you breathe something in, it's responsible for your sense of smell. And so our sense of smell is probably the most powerful memory house in our entire bodies. So what happens is when you have like a memory as a child and something is smelling, right? Like cookies. And you smell that same cookie like maybe 20 years later that you hadn't smelled since you were a kid, you might tear up and not even know why. Because maybe it was your grandmother that you absolutely adored and she's now passed away, right? You might hate it. Like you might smell a smell like lavender and want to vomit, like have a physical reaction to it, but it's actually rooted in emotions because you smelled it and it instantly gutturally sent you back to maybe a time where you got molested, you see, and around that area was lavender, or somebody in that home used lavender, or it was in a room where there was lavender, right? So this is like a curious thing because the sense of smell has the ability to pull you right back to an experience, whether good or bad, and it will bring up all sorts of emotions. So emotions with essential oils, when I ever talk about like how do you get around this or how do you actually utilize them properly, I want you to think of extremes. And I'm talking extremes. I'm not talking like, oh, I don't really like it, right? Some people are like, I don't really like patchouli, so I don't use it. Fine, don't use it. If you hate patchouli, meaning not the synthetic version, by the way. So most of the patchoulis that all of you growing up remember is not what our patchouli smells like, because that's not what patchouli smells like. That's a synthetic patchouli. If you smelled real patchouli, Young Livings, and you just want to like vomit, or you want to get it out of your face, you want to hit somebody, I'm talking like you feel this rage, that means you've got some issues to work through, some deep-rooted emotional issues. So like frankincense, for instance, and I write about this in my book, French Aromatherapy, and I get a lot of flack from this, and it's because you're dealing with middle roads. I'm talking about extremes. You look at frankincense, and if I handed it to you and you smelled it, you never smelled it before, or at least you didn't think you did, and you're like, oh, I hate that, like, oh, like you're like really upset. I ask, well, are you Catholic? And people are like, what? Weird. And if they had that massive hatred feeling and get it away from me, it dawns on them. They're like, oh yeah, they used to burn that in church and I hated it. I hated church. My mom made me go right? Or they'd have the other reaction. They'd smell it and be like, oh, I love this. I could just curl up in a couch and like smell it all day long. And like, what is that? I need it. And then I'm like, oh, are you Catholic? And they're like, yes, how did you know? And it's like, you must have had a really, really beautiful experience as a Catholic. Or they know right away that's like, oh, that's my church, right? Because they're still practicing Catholics. So I use the Catholic example simply because you've got extremes there. It's extremes for whatever reason. And that is a specific smell to all Catholic churches because they burn the frankincense resin in Catholic churches. So, that's a way to kind of see an emotional response. Lavender is another one because lavender is a commonly used oil, and I can simply see if they have this guttural reaction to it. I can tell if they hated it, they had some trauma. If they love it, they had some beautiful memory attached to that. So these emotional responses to oils are so big and so important that you need to embrace them. So if you smell an oil and it disgusts you, like in a way that you just are angry almost, you've got to use that oil. You have to get what the oil will do is the oil will go ahead of you and start preparing your soil, basically. It will prepare the cells as you're contemplating what's going on. Like, why do I hate this oil? Where is this coming from? How, and start meditating on it or pray about it, whatever your route is that you take, but really contemplate every time that you use that oil. You don't have to put it all over where your smell is, but do try to smell it at least once a day and put some on the bottom of your feet. You don't need to diffuse it all day long because it will just drive you crazy, but put some on the bottom of your feet. The oils will infiltrate your entire cellular structure within 20 minutes. You won't smell it anymore, but it will start setting up your cells in a way to help you release those negative energies. Super, super powerful. And again, I didn't believe any of this until I started trying it. And it's wild, you guys. And I just want to encourage you guys to kind of trust that it's true, first of all. And then second of all, start down your own emotional kind of love affair almost, or relationship with oils. Go through the stash that you have now, smell each one. If there's one that you really hate, start using it. Like for me, it was geranium. So like joy, I couldn't stand. Joy has a lot of geranium in it, and I couldn't stand it. And I'm like, what is with everybody in joy? Like, I hate it. Come to find out, a lot of women my age hate it too. And they took it out of the kit because that's our age group now. It used to be in the premium starter kit. And here's why. We as young people growing up in the 70s and 80s, in the 80s specifically, there was a perfume that many women wore, our mothers, that was geranium based. And it's actually a love story of Gary's because Gary, a lot of his blends have a geranium in it because it's one of Mary's favorite oils. And so it's really an interesting thing to understand the history behind this. But many of us went through terrible divorces in the 80s. The 80s, for some reason, were just riddled with divorce. And so these terrible, upsetting divorces was surrounded by the smell of geranium, our mom. And it dawned on me when I finally forgave my family. Like, I finally had a conversation with them and apologized to them for how I'd been responding to it for so many years, that I smelled joy and I actually liked it for the first time. And it's because I was able to get that out without the oils. Now, had I known about the oil thing beforehand, because this was a while ago, I would have been able to start using joy to help release those negative energies. So now I use joy on the bottom of my feet. Doesn't mean I don't love geranium. I've never been a big floral fan, but it's still important for you to understand that you can use those oils and it will still help align your cells in a way that will help you get through some emotional turmoil potentially. So I can go on for days about this subject because it's very interesting. If you want to get into the human body and essential oils, go ahead and check that out. There's some topics on there like why does cedarwood smell like cat pee? I mean, it's very fascinating. It doesn't. Why do a lot of the oils smell powdery? They don't. This is all your memory and your sense of emotional support merging things together, okay? So again, it's the Human Body and Essential Oils, and check out my new books on Amazon. It's the Essential Oil Make and Take, book, which is super cool. It's over 60 recipes. And then one called Essentially Driven. So if you're trying to figure out how to help people understand the business side in a very easy, concise way, that's your book to do. And then also we've got my very first book for essential oils, which is called The Essential Oil Truth. And last but not least, which is a really fun one, which is French Aromatherapy. You can check out my app, the EO Bar, and I hope to see you in my group. All right, you guys, take care. Bye.